right, fingers crossed that this is working because the Mac is causing me no end of problems this evening. We're just going to wait for that to line up. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Put off a little bit because yesterday, let me just check. Perfect. Okay, that seems like it's actually working. Yesterday and, well, a couple of times this week, my router up on the shelf there has been giving me fits, deciding every now and then that maybe packets don't need to go anywhere. And I have replaced the firmware with a brand spanking new one, done some tests, fiddled with a little bit of some settings, did a little bit of Amazon searching for potentially a new one because it's been a while since I have upgraded that thing, and my connection's a lot faster now than it was before. So theories abound that perhaps the sheer strain that we're putting on the router with uh, all of the network traffic streaming a lot of Netflix and Twitch and other things, maybe heating up the processor or something. Who can say? But yeah, we put the stream off from yesterday to today as a result of that. So fingers crossed, everything keeps working. And then, of course, today, as we're running up on the stream, the MacBook decided it needed to reboot itself, took a long time to restart. And right now, in the live control room, we can only see the top quarter of the whole screen. It has decided, for reasons I do not comprehend, that I don't need to see the entirety of the whole stream. I only need to see the upper left corner. So apologies, stream's a little bit late starting as a result of me not being entirely sure that OBS was doing the right thing. But in fact, it seems to be, so good on us. So we're going to be doing some just random plug-in-y stuff tonight. I don't have any definite plans, just wanted to get back into the swing of things. We do have a new version of Sublime Text to play around in here. I'm running the latest build, which if I ran a little bit of the about action would be 4097. And I am using the new window caption support, which as of this build is disabled by default, but I like the way it looks. Title bar a little bit taller than it might otherwise be, yes, but normally I run my screen at a high enough resolution that that doesn't really impact on me at all. And I like the cohesive look, if you will, of the screen, the caption going up there. So, bully to Ben, if you're watching, hello, and thanks for having a setting to re-enable that. It's an undocumented setting. The new caption bar should only appear, I guess, under GNOME, but I like it. Kind of weird that it decides it needs to be taller, but I don't like to have the menu on anyway, so it really produces a nice cohesive look and feel, I gotta say. Yeah. So everything seems to be kosher. I mean, I'm really weirded out by YouTube and its whole preview thing. I do not need extra problems imposed on me by my streaming site, you know? So let's go ahead and dive on into something. I haven't quite decided yet what we are going to fiddle with, as a matter of fact. But and hello again. I've created some new graphics to surround myself with. I don't know if it's related to these changes or just the fact that using the window manager control function to try to size a window to a specific size, it does not do what you might think that it should do. It sized the window to the size that I wanted, but actually it sized the outer area, and then the whole window appeared inside of the capture area, and I had to manually squinch the window size around pixel by pixel until it got to the place that I wanted. Pretty sure I've had that problem with it before. You get exactly one window resize before X starts reporting the wrong size, or the screen capture that utility that comes with XFCE does something weird. GTK's client-side window decorations match gnomes for obvious reasons. So if your GTK theme doesn't theme the title bar to match the rest of the OS, it'll show the gnome title bar. Ah, I see. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, my puppy is barking in the background. This is the normal state of affairs for a window. And these are themes that come with XFCE, which is actually kind of an older version at this point, even though this is a newer version of this. The Slackware people or the XFCE people or both are kind of holding their breath on that. So right now, I guess the title bar is roughly the caption bar is like roughly the size of the menu and title combined, but I don't have the menu enabled. So hey, looks good to me. And because um, we were discussing it earlier or earlier in the week, the functionality that I noted was missing was the ability to pick roll window up, which just gives you caption. You can also use the mouse wheel for that as well. Um, I'm surprised that that's not just a more standard thing, but I may have been using XFCE so long for this point at this point in time that I forgot what other things look like. I used to use KDE like 15 years ago, but since I was the one that got nominated to running the 32-bit version of the distribution that we use on my development machine because we were doing parallel 32 and 64-bit builds and we needed somebody local to test, and my machine was a little underpowered at the time, I chose XFCE, the cholesterol-free window manager, because it performs better, or it did at the time, on this hardware that I had. Of course, these days, this computer is powerful enough that if I make minus J8 in the OBS code, it will, from scratch, build the whole thing in about 20 seconds. And the fans in the thing spool up so much that I'm afraid it's going to hover itself up off the desk and fly away. I didn't even know that it had case fans in it, to be perfectly honest, until I did that. So, but I believe that this is running at like 3 gigahertz or some such. It's a Xeon. It's super fancy, such as these things go. By stark contrast to the Windows laptop they gave me, has an SSD that's roughly got 100 gigs of space on it after Windows takes up all of its action, and then you install Docker on it, and then you have no space for anything else. Well, GNOME doesn't have that, so it's not in GTK. Ah, neat. The other thing that it can do is, pin Windows to be always on top or always visible on all workspaces, but that works regardless, despite the fact that there's not a button there for it. But that's only of so much interest because I'm past the days when I have 16 different workspaces with everything, because I used to have multiple desktops with side-by-side terminals running multiple copies of Vim to be able to edit all the files I need, and now I have Sublime, and it's a cool ability to have multiple things. And also, whoops, J. I've been trying to bring myself in line with the new key binding action here. But I can't quite remember. I was playing with it earlier this morning. Or I'm doing the wrong thing. It's hard to say. Control Shift left. Oh, that's right. Control Shift right. Is that not what I was doing? There we go. I could have swore that's what I was doing, but yeah. And color me surprised. I think you probably saw us talking in the Discord that how cool it is that you can Alt Tab through these groups of selected tabs like this. That is like boss. It sort of confused me to begin with that I lost the ability to use the Alt keys to address other things until that was pointed out. So that's actually quite cool. Hello, Ashwin. Welcome to the stream. Please let me know if. Oh, this is actually the first time also that I'm noticing that thing that you noticed about how the modification line goes down at the bottom because you can't see the top of the tab. I remember you mentioning that, but this is actually the first time that I've actually sat down to do anything specific coding wise with more than one file at a time. It's been a very meeting heavy week. So, does anybody have any ideas for stuff that we should be working on tonight? Because I did not have too much of that going on. Oops. Although, well, I did have one idea for something to play with. I got to switch back to the other one, huh? Ooh, now I got three of them going. Um, I have pondered from time to time the idea of plugins that make screencasting stuff, the recordings that I do, a little bit easier to manipulate. And one of the things related to that, um, Ashwin might remember a ways back, we were working on a plugin to allow you to select some text and uh, mark it with a certain background color, and there were like 10 different ones. I think somebody asked about it on Stack Overflow or something, and then we worked on it in a stream, and the guy decided he didn't want an answer anymore, which frankly happens a fair bit. People ask for, how do I do a thing? And you say you need a plugin, and then you say, how would such a plugin work? And you'd say, like this, and then they'd say, nah, never mind, I don't want to do that anymore. There's totally a guy that routinely asks questions about Sublime. He'll bounty the question on Stack Overflow to get somebody to provide him a canonical answer, and then you provide one, and he's like, "Oh, that doesn't work in Sublime Text 2," and you say, "I'm not surprised. Sublime Text 2, you know, quite defunct at this point." He's like, "Nah, that's okay. I know your answer totally works for Sublime Text 3, and but I like Sublime Text 2, so I'm not going to bother awarding you any bounty on that." And he doesn't even vote your answer up, even though he acknowledges that it's correct. It's kind of a drag. But that information is out there now for other people. I think that last one was related to build systems and your ability to trigger them based on the name of a file or the type of a file, irrespective of the scope. Hello, Iatku. Uh, Welcome to the stream. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. National is asking, the custom title bar in Linux doesn't have the hamburger. No, it does not. It's just a regular. It's a regular menu bar here, but I don't tend to use it very often, and it appears when you press the key. So I'm considering that good enough, which is, if you were here earlier, this is how big the caption bar normally is. So you can see that indeed, if we did a little something like this, the whole caption is roughly on my window manager, uh, the caption and the menu as a whole. So if I have the menu on, it takes up even more space, which doesn't bother me in the general case because I normally run at a much higher resolution than this. So, the fact that I'm losing one line of text in a window, not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, as Ben's saying there, the hamburger is Windows only. Um, I would imagine that trying to draw custom captions in the general case is more of a pain in the butt. GTK seems to be nicer about being able to theme things. Although, to be honest, I've never really gotten into that myself. Not everything works so great in that regard. For example, the whole system right now is set into dark mode, generally speaking. But if we look at my mail program, it doesn't really have much of a conception of that as a thing. And when there's actually mail in one of these things, it changes into a color that makes it practically unreadable. So you have to look for the line that looks like it doesn't have any writing on it, and then you know that's the one that has some mail. This is why I'm excited for the next release of this particular distribution is going to be jumping the version of XFCE up to the next one, which apparently they've just released, which for the first time ever has actual dark mode support, which says a lot about the window manager in general. I'm always on the lookout for potentially a new Linux distribution to try, but the downside to that is I really only want to install one when I'm building a new machine, and I'm not really fans of anything Ubuntu or Debian related because I'm more of a go into the etc. directory and find the appropriate RC file and tweak it to sysadmin things rather than spending 20 minutes fumbling around in a control panel thing. This computer, as a matter of fact, shipped with Debian or Ubuntu something out of the box, 18 maybe, because it's about a year old now. And it was a pain in the butt to get it to figure out how to get it to reboot. I eventually had to open a terminal and execute the shutdown -R command. I couldn't find anything that would actually reboot the thing. Yeah, 2021 and we finally discovered dark mode. I know, right? It's super cool that the latest builds of Sublime totally allow you to follow the system light and dark, which I previewed in my most recent video. Sublime does it better than Windows does it. I'll tell you that if you've ever played with that. Notice that when you switch the overall system from light to dark, Sublime's window changes instantly, and then you get to see this slow ripple throughout all the rest of the operating system where windows disappear and reappear and get bigger and smaller as it finally redraws everything, which I was tempted to try to trim out of the video clip, which I do from time to time because I have it set to dark, but whenever you open a file browser, it flashes white before it repaints the window black, which is a giant pain in the butt. And for the purposes of videos, I will trim those 2 frames out, but it really blinds the eyes, man. Um, before the stream, I was looking in my user package. Um, I think Mark Selection is the thing that I was thinking of playing with here. Um, which was again that project where somebody wanted to, let's open that one just to see. Yeah, so we had some settings. We had a style input handler. I think we could probably do something like this, right? You pick it and then you say, I want green text, and it gives you this sort of greeny background type thing. And then I can't remember how far we actually got with this thing. I don't think it remembers that across a restart, but let's see. No, it did. It totally made it persistent. Oh, yeah, I can see it right there. Derp. You'd think they just shoved the animation timer a bit longer to get past that, but yeah, Windows gonna Windows, all right. I'm glad that they actually have it now, though. So there's that. I'm finding a lot of things that have dark modes now that are just like utterly, utterly black. Like, for example, Chrome and its dark theme. I mean, it's called dark, but it should be called just nothing but black. But it works. So, that's cool. Packages will soon have the ability to auto select the color scheme in the quick panel based on the OS theme if the theme setting is auto. Oh, for its version of the edit color scheme thing. I was sort of thrown off by that for a second because I'm used to saying edit current color scheme, but there's a new one built in that it's customized color scheme instead of edit color scheme. So does the same thing, but the verbiage is slightly different, which absolutely makes sense. But I was so used to the other one that I was like, oh, you know what, you could actually do this built in now. And then no matter what I tried to put in there, wouldn't find the appropriate command. So uh, it was a bit of a thing there. Ford would be proud. Indeed. So what I was thinking, as something to play with here, we'll give you any dark theme you'd like as long as it's 000. Yeah, I think I don't know if this is just me, but GitHub's has its own dark mode now as well, and I always have one pinned tab in my tab bar of GitHub. And if I come back to it after like a few hours, the page is completely blank, and you have to hit back or reload to get anything to actually appear. And it did do that before I turned dark mode on. Yeah, it looks more like a black hole. There's also sort of a gray one, but it's more of a lighter, like even lighter than the gray of this bar up here. Uh, it was sort of the best of multiple worlds. I actually don't mind it all that much, especially with dark mode reader tending to sort of match the colors. It makes things line up quite nice. But I'm still kind of getting used to the idea that tabs aren't visibly distinct unless they are focused. But it's not the worst thing in the world, I don't think. because there's still some delineation here. And I think I mentioned this in the Discord a ways back, but there was one theme that I was playing with, must be like a couple of years ago now, I can't remember what it was, where all the tabs were square and they had literally no delineation at all. Not when it was active, not when it was not. It was just the same color. There was just the name of the file and a close icon. It didn't even have these little separator bars that we can see here. So you just had to inherently know where tabs ended, and not a fan of that. Um, I'd like to say I'm not a fan of square tabs either, but with the ability of the Linux version to have this custom caption and the same now on Windows as well, so that the tab bar blends right into the caption, it actually works a lot better for me than it used to. The look of the tab coming right up and abutting the menu, not seemed a little weird somehow. I like the idea that there's a little bit of space between the caption and the tab. I don't know why. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. Um, I probably should have done that in a different window, huh? We could turn this into a package. So what I was thinking of playing with, unless somebody has an idea of something that we could fiddle around with here, is something that could maybe have a list of regions that you could cycle through with the key press. Um, Seems like something that might come in handy. Now, this particular operation here, uh, you need to, oh, I wonder, do I have a, yeah, I do. Clear all marked selections. That's right, we're storing this in settings too, aren't we? Yes. Um, I think I'd like it better if it was something like that, so that it doesn't have that outline on it. Just in the general case for this, I'm not sure what our reasoning was for doing it the other way before. But what I'm thinking is when we're doing videos on the channel that are related to, I lost my window there, going over sort of a plugin and saying, here we're doing some stuff, and then here's like a for loop doing a thing. If I could set stuff up by saying, store this region, store this region, store this region, and then have it uh, maybe just jump the selection there or outline it in one of the colored regions. And as you press a key, it advances forward. Sort of like, if this still works. Yeah, we haven't used the outline plugin in a while, but the way that the outline plugin would allow you to go back and forth through different things in the stream outline, just to be able to better call things out, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to try to draw the animated arrow in that I put there, uh, because it's a little bit fiddly to have something like that over an extended period of time. Make sure it lines up. It's still visually interesting. Just sort of things I'm playing with overall. But the thought also occurs that is this the sort of Ashwin, you helped somebody with something similar to this recently in the forum, didn't you? The ability to mark text with a color. Am I remembering that right? The guy wanted to have like a color picker dialogue, and we told him that that wasn't a thing that could happen. And then he just sort of had a configured list of potential colors to use or something along those lines. Am I remembering that correctly? I can't remember when that was, if that was fairly recent or months back. It all blends, don't you know? Um, yeah. Is it? Did we make this actually save? through. Let's do this actually, and can have our own thing for this. We could probably move this into its own package, I would think. Um, and I imagine this is most of what we would need in here. Also a Python 3.8 thing as well. So we just have mark and clear. Actually, this could be cooler now because can we display colors now in the mini HTML used in list items? Is that a thing I remember being a thing for the ish colors? Because that would actually be pretty handy for the input handler as well. I've only played a little bit with that. I did modify this to have the version of Python that the different API files are for. Ooh, actually, no. I was just thinking that new want event functionality where this could figure out uh, what key you press or modifier you were holding when you selected it. Is there a way to do this in a way where we could leave this open, or would it have to manually invoke itself again if you wanted to open multiple files at once, instead of just one? That might be something fun to play with at some point too. Would also be interesting if Linux had the concept of a colored emoji font. I kind of like the way on Windows the package dev edit pencil is a nice color icon as opposed to what it appears like here. Um, but if we were to look at this, let's shoot that over there. Those are the styles. We just have commands to mark or clear. So it's going to take some sort of style, which is our input handler. Uh, that gets the list of all styles by pulling them out of the settings key, which is this one right here. And if we want all, we can specify all, and then we get the scope associated with the one chosen, add the regions. Yes, we add a setting, don't we? It's all slightly coming back to me. I can't remember what stream it was that we originally worked on this in, but uh, only allow the command to be enabled if there are any styles defined. If a style argument isn't provided, give it the list of style keys to choose from, which is going to be the name, I presume. Oops, pardon me. This is one of those examples where not having any comments, it's obvious what this does, but it still sort of gives you pause for a second. Figure out what keys it is that we want to delete. Delete them. So, and I don't have the new stuff in here yet. Crap. Do you think it would make an interesting stream just chatting about various Sublime stuff as we slowly update the Snappy help to include the latest documentation stuff? um, no. Let's pick that. What would that be in? What's the name of that actual class? I can't even remember that part. List item, list input item. It's in Sublime. Of course it is. Okay, let's take a look at this, shall we? Oh, I guess this doesn't quite do what we were thinking of. My thought here was using maybe an annotation. That's the part that goes to the right-hand side uh, with a color in it. Actually, I suppose what we could do is a little bit of this, because this has that kind of action. Trigger details. Was it details that's there? I suppose we need to do this to see the thing that we're looking at doing something with is, so it would have to be down in this part. Shoot. Hang on. This is not a good typing day, I'll tell you what. Is not. Did I do that correctly? I could. I had this vague recollection that one of the things that was mentioned was that you can use colors in these now. Uh, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the name of the property, because I'm not much of a web dude. Or if that's actually something that mini HTML supports, now that I think about it. But we have a window. Ow. Where's the, well, I guess we could try it with background color. That would definitely do something, right? What the hey? This, oh, I may also need one of these things. I never checked the console to make sure that that was actually doing something. But that does not seem to do something there. Maybe it was only in the preview. That could be. Or alternatively, I'm just sort of off my rocker here. Let's put this back to the way it was. Ashwin, did you say that you tend to use expand selection to indentation, or was that somebody else? I find my big problem with the new key bindings is less that the join command, which I do fairly frequently, if that was on Control J, my brain picked that up pretty equally. But my brain just automatically wants to push Control K and not Control J before it does any of those chords, and then it does not do what I would expect it to. I can't even remember what build that would have been in if it was. When the validate, I may have been thinking of that. Fixed display of the annotation field. I could swear that there was some mention about being able to use colors in color. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of color-based kind IDs. That might be the deal that I was going with there. If this package didn't have it allow you to configure the list of colors you were going to use and it just used ish colors, then that would work great because then the icon could display in the color that you are expecting it to be in. Should be kind of neat, but that falls down in other cases because otherwise you need to. How does that actually work here? Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, the different kinds, which would be here. There are specific kind IDs for that because the other ones are done by the theme. So yeah, you would have to only use those. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? I don't think. It's not January 20th, right? I don't think it is. Um, yeah. Does that match this? Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, pink. Yes, yes it does. Oh, hopefully that's not affecting the stream. Doesn't sound like it. Weird. Okay, I think maybe we should, as a fun thing to do, in this order, these things. Yeah. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to close that and let us and move from user to there and to move this to there. Hello, Joseph. I'm iconic, am I? Hopefully that's a good thing and not a bad thing. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to move that, and we're going to move the project, copy the project specific keys, Python version to mark selection, and then do that. Okay, then we can close all these files because we moved them away and reopen them in the new location. 100% a good thing. Whoop! We're just chilling and working on some random plugin stuff here. If you have any questions about Sublime or anything else, or ideas for plugin ideas, plugin/package ideas, please voice them in the chat. And how's your evening going so far? Or morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you actually happen to be in. Oh. As as has been attested in many a live stream, I'm not so good with time zones, so I like to shotgun the appropriate greetings. Good morning, good evening, and good night. Sort of operation. Um, that would be the plugin, and we want that. Those are just open because, and everything should otherwise be okay, but just for sanity's sake, we'll quit and restart that to make sure that everything comes back the way one might expect. So we could, whoops, pardon me, we could do a little bit of this and say mark selection as green, and there we have it. Although, is it, have rulers always been not affected by the region color? I can't, I don't remember that looking like that before, but that could be me. Like so. So right now we're actually loading these things out of this. But the theory is hard code these for the purposes of playing with this. It's nighttime here, doing a bit of coding myself. Ah, cool. What are you working on? I have always been a little bit of a night owl. The nighttime seems like a good time to be, you know, set up, working on some code, maybe listening to some EDM or something off to the side, something with no lyrics, because that tends to distract me from actually doing stuff. Particularly when there's a tricky problem that you're trying to solve. Your brain doesn't want to figure out why everything is off by one when it seems like it shouldn't be, and you just sort of start humming along or singing the lyrics to the song. Which is why I find a lot of savant music is good for stuff like this. Um, but I don't like to play music in the background of the streams because music is a personal preference, and anybody that's listening to the stream can listen to their own. And then also, I don't have to worry about getting copyright strikes or playing the same 7 songs that everybody else plays because they're in the YouTube music library and thus safe. Let's move that over just a titch. Okay. This is returning the styles key, which is giving them names. Um, so this would be a list, wouldn't it? I think this would be a list of things. I've often pondered the idea of extra streams just working on other programming tasks than just plugins and packages in Sublime, but honestly, I can't think of anything that I normally would want to work on in that regard. Um, I did have a project for a while to completely recreate from scratch the original Dragon Warrior 1 for NES or Dragon Quest, depending on what part of the world that you're from. But, you know, that was right down to the level of having the actual sprites from the game and versions of music pulled out of the cartridge so that it's really, you know, styled the same. And I do not want to get stomped. At one point in one of my November projects, we worked on uh, what I cleverly referred to as RX, which was a Dr. Mario clone, completely inside of TypeScript in a web page. And at the end of the operation, I needed to put it up on a page where people could actually play it. And the easiest place to do that was um, itch.io, because they have, you could ostensibly sell anything you want there as long as you have an account, and you can mark things as pay what you want. So I just marked like this is free, but if you want to give me $1, feel free. I don't know why you'd want to, and posted the thing there so that anybody that read about it on Twitter wouldn't have to pull down the code and try to run it. It could just click on the link in itch and do it right there. Uh, and shortly after that, a couple of weeks after November was all said and done, uh, Nintendo did a big sweep through itch with broad search terms for anything that was even vaguely related to anything Nintendo related. And I got a DMCA takedown notice that I was going to get sued into oblivion if I didn't remove my vector graphic, very manky looking, but completely gameplay accurate clone of uh, Dr. Mario. I guess, they thought I was going to make $1 billion off of their handiwork or something. Um, did not work out that way, though. And I like to think uh, that's how you know you have made it as a game developer when Nintendo comes after you uh, with a cease and desist. You know you must have done something correct, right? Where'd my mouse cursor go? There we go. Um, that's going to load, right? Just pondering. The idea is we're going to use a new list input item thing here. I'll put that back for the time being, so that we can see a region that tells you what color this is going to be. Because these are actually misnomers. It's not really red text, it's reddish text, right? Uh, I'm a contributor to an open source shell called New Shell, written in Rust, so I'm currently working on some stuff related to it. Also passively Zig, something I want to learn. Ooh, what's Zig? Is that a programming language or of some sort? Ben says Nintendo is famous for aggressively enforcing their copyright law. If I remember correctly, Japan doesn't have fair use laws. Yeah, I understand to a large degree why they would do that because, in the eyes of the law, if you know that somebody did something using one of your copyrights and you didn't go after them, then implicitly you're setting a precedent that it's okay to do that. And then, you have problems down the line. Sometimes I think they take it to a little bit of an extreme. Like, I'm not sure if this is still the case now, but at one point, I believe there was, you couldn't even like stream a Nintendo game or have the music from a Nintendo game in your gameplay stream. Nintendo didn't want that happening either, which really seemed like a shoot yourself in the foot kind of moment because one of the things that makes a person want to buy a game is watching someone else play it and getting the experience. And I seem to recall that there's a lot of videos about that on YouTube now. So presumably, if that was a thing, they've relaxed their stance and they allow it now. Or there's like a lot of YouTubers that are really playing fast and loose with the copyright laws. Um, for example, you may have noticed that the on the videos the introduction changed. I used to do it in Blackmagic Fusion, and now I'm using HitFilm Pro to do it. It's a completely different approach to animation because one's node-based and one's timeline-based. I kind of prefer timeline. It makes more sense to me. It's easier to modify now. And while I was working on that, I really thought, maybe I could jazz it up more than this changing the font and the animation a little bit. Maybe I could, use a different tune in there and really leery of if you use music from the YouTube Music Library, then you know you won't get a copyright claim because anything that Content ID matches to the YouTube Music Library isn't gonna, nobody has a leg to stand on in that regard. You have to like sign over all of your rights to your music to be able to have it in the content library. And there are so many places online that say you could use my music for free or give me $20 and you have the perpetual license to this and I'll give you a license to do it and stuff. But it's so easy for somebody to say with an automated claim, I have the copyright on that song, and the immediate response is you get a copyright claim, and then you as the music or as the video author have to fight that and prove that you have a license, and all of that seems like such a pain. I don't want to use anything outside of the YouTube Music Library as audio, which really curtails at least for me and my limited skills in audio editing, despite the fact that I'm a guitarist, what I could actually use. Mm. C is a newer language that's attempting to replace C and all the problems with C, sort of like how Rust is attempting to replace C++. Ah, interesting. Hey, I remember to update the bot and I remember to update the lower third. Go me. Um, that is interesting. I am a long-time C developer, so I acknowledge that, one of the favorite sayings that we have, and I imagine it, a widespread thing is the thing I like about C is it gives you just enough rope to hang yourself and then it shoots you in the foot. Uh, but it's amazing if you have enough years of experience just coding in C and then you jump to a new programming language, suddenly everything just seems weird. Like in anything to do with string parsing in, like, say JavaScript, like say you had a string that is a JSON object that you wanted for some reason to write your own JSON decoder. In C, I know exactly how I would do that, stepping through an array, keeping an index, and such. And it seems like in JavaScript you sort of can do that, and then but there's other things where you would actually split the string apart, and working with concatenating strings together. And as a C developer, you just sort of get it in your head that, oh, this is going to be so slow, but it's not really because the implementation is sort of defined for that. As long as you're not silly and do recursive, or not recursive, but continued concatenations one after the other instead of queuing them all up in one. But I went professionally from C++ to Python, and it's just such a huge change. Yeah, I mean, you gotta, go with the times and such, right? And so I don't. Um, Speaking of, I mean, uh, way back in high school, uh, the class was learning BASIC, but I had already been using BASIC since like grade 5 or 6 on my old ColecoVision Atom. So I started using Pascal before the class moved to Pascal, and then I started. I taught myself C after, knowing Pascal, because once you know one language and the ins and outs of that, learning another one, at least, is largely related to learning the new syntax to do the things semantically that you already know how to do. So picking up C wasn't the worst thing in the world. And I've been doing, primarily C related stuff ever since. But the project that I work on at work is actually written in Objective C. And that's because it was actually originally written for an honest to God Next cube. Our office used to have one sitting on the desk off in the corner, the tiny little cube with this magneto optical stuff. And we ported that away from there to Windows running Yellow Box back in the day. Um, and then there was, I can't remember, we definitely had it running on a Spark box, and Linux as well, where it remains to this day, using GNU Step for a while after, from in between the next cube and where we eventually ended up. We used OpenStep for a long period of time as our actual desktop OSs, and we used Rhapsody, which eventually became Mac OS X. So we, it was sort of funny to see that they had it running on Intel hardware, and they sort of were like, I assume giving it out because we had access to it. And then after everything was sort of shaken out nicely, it switched to being only Power PC for a while, and then it switched back the other way. But anyway, as a result of that big long ramble, our software to this day is written in Objective C, and we don't really have the ability, like, most of the time, if you were writing a Mac application or an iOS application, you could write it in Objective C, but also you could write it in Swift, and maybe that's better. We never really got into that because the legacy size of code that we would have to rewrite to make that happen, uh, daunting to say the least. And we're just but two developers working on a system from scratch. So weirdly, despite the fact that I'm a C developer, I've mostly been working in Objective C for a long period of time, which will really skew your perspective of square brackets after a while, if you're familiar with Objective C and or Smalltalk. To this day, there's still some things about that I actually miss, although it's been a couple of years since I actually got to use it. Um, if we assumed that we could replace this with that, how well would that work? Not great. Yeah. Sometimes if it ain't broke, I mean, we have pondered the idea of rewriting it in C a couple of times. And well, I say C, but really C++, but sort of that weird straddle, like on this hand you have straight C, and on this hand you have C++, and somewhere in the middle you have that weird conglomeration of my code looks like C, but I'm using simple classes and I'm using references to things instead of actual pointers to things because it makes the code a little bit nicer, but not using IO streams or heavy class templating sort of thing, but it never really goes anywhere. Objective C++, I have never used myself personally. For a long time, I was actually so into Objective C that I was really jonesing for a way to get it to compile on my Windows machine. And this is back enough in the day where that wasn't really an option. There weren't really any, I think before in the days before MinGW and MSys and the ability to take like GCC and G++ and just compile them and have them working on Windows, the next best thing you could run is how the original Objective-C compiler worked, which would be a preprocessor that compiled the code down to C so that you could compile it and you would never want to look at the C that it splorked out because it was pretty rough looking. Um, but yeah, we never really got into Objective C++. Interestingly enough, our system that my coworker and I designed and built runs on Linux. There's 5 machines in a cluster, all custom uh, Objective C and straight C for a lot of things code with a custom interprocess communication and what for. We do stock data stuff, so as we like to say, uh, it took a while to originally create. Over the course of the years, everything has slowly been rewritten piecemeal at least once from the original iteration to what we have now. And we've got it to a point where there used to be 2 of us that needed to be full time on it, and now one person part time just needs to have a window open on one monitor with some telnets running, and the system tells you when it's ailing. But the other part of the company is currently trying to migrate themselves away from a legacy VMS system, and we're glad we never had to embark on that because it is involved. Do I have any cool insider news on where we might be in terms of Sublime 4 official release? Uh, Personally, no. Maybe Ben does, but if he does, he's probably not going to say anything. My personal inclination is that probably the main thing that's holding back a public release, if anything, is that plugins that are running in the new Python 3.8 plugin host that are installed via package control can't handle dependencies yet. So I would guess that the official release won't happen until package control's dependency handling mechanism has been updated, because we probably want to start getting developers working in the new plugin host rather than using the legacy one, and that would be a big thing for quite a few packages, I would imagine. Work on that is happening right now, so maybe soonish. That's my best guess on that. But since we're using the new build here right now, I mean, depends on what you mean by out realistically, because I've been using it for quite some time. Uh, any new features coming out in Merge? That I don't know. I don't. I know that there's a roadmap for Merge, but it's been a while since I looked at it. But I quite like how it also has this action. Oh, actually, does this have a? Is there a way to hide the menu? I would imagine so. That's not something that really occurred to me before now. Do, do, do. Hmm. Anyway, I really like the integration and how they look. So, Ben says we're getting close. So there you go. That's as close to official as we're gonna get. And the answer for when will a native M1 release be is also the I don't know how close that might be. Maybe fairly close, but I think the last I heard, they were sort of waiting for M1 Max to not be a bajillion dollars or something. I can't remember now. It sounds like having a native M1 build isn't the panacea that you might think that it would be if anything that's Python 3 that has an older package that isn't necessarily going to be able to run because Python 3 can't compile on ARM. So is there a setting for hiding the menu? I use there probably is, isn't there? I always say you should just check the thing. Auto hide menu. I generally use the toggle command for that. Actually, I never checked the. Whoops, that's not the thing that I meant to do. Da, da, da. This is how frequently I actually look in the menu for this thing. We can toggle the sidebar, but we've got an M1. The problem is Python 3.3 support. Yeah. Are you guys actually trying to jury rig getting Python 3.3 to compile for that architecture? I would imagine that is certainly not a task that I would like to deal with. I mean, it was painful enough for the code base that I, was just mentioning there, the one that has been run on a large variety of things. We needed to go 64-bit, fully 64-bit with it, and that was a bit of a trial. It's not just as simple as compiling for a new architecture. We had long longs in various places, but pointers change size. If there was anything that was defined as a regular int, that might have changed size. It was a bit of a trial, and that was enough fun for us. Too much work yet? I do not blame you. I like to think that if somebody wants to run Sublime on an M1 and they want that true native experience, then it's time to start running lean and mean. Or maybe that's the impetus people need to start coming up with revamped versions of older packages with binary libraries in them and such. The actual backend support is there. The same command might work. Oh, that's interesting. Uh, uh, uh. Whoops, there we go. Okay, well now I'm kind of curious why that's not working. Boop, boop, boo. Hmm. Oh, is this like a ridiculously big window? Oh, there we go. That'll explain some stuff. I'm like, how come this isn't actually opening here? This should be opening here, but yeah, it totally is. But this window is used to being 2560 by 1440, and this screen ain't. The same command might work, huh? Well, let's give it a try. What is it? Oh, it's right here. Just toggle menu, you say. Control Shift H. Let's see. That may not have been a good key to use for that. Let's try this. Echo is not a command that would work because echo is a command that's written as a plugin. So on the face of it, I don't think so. Maybe that's an issue to add. Really seems like something that I would have done, but or at some point. But maybe I'm thinking of how on Windows it has the hamburger menu now. Oh yeah, here's totally the binding with the key that I was doing something with. I wonder why I have that in there. Best guess I was helping somebody on the Discord or forum. My configuration needs a severe clean out for all of the random stuff like that that's laying around. But yeah, I'm not aware of any cool new features coming to Merge. But I'm always happy to see a new build because there's always something in there that is cooler. Digging the new look, checking out tags seems fun. Oh yeah, this is the OBS Studio code. Somewhere between this commit where I'm running right now and this commit that is the last time that I checked stuff out. They actually upgraded the code to use a newer version of Ceph, which means they could use a newer version of OBS Studio, of the OBS browser plugin, which means that they no longer have that weird problem where one of the things is using the Qt message loop and Chromium wants to use the GTK message loop, and that is no end of problem. Or maybe I'm having that the other way because one of the things you could do to fix it is try to get the main app to use the other thing, the other message loop, but then you lose native file dialogues in favor of GTK file dialogues or Qt or something, which is an issue because whichever file dialog it ends up using in that case can't address a network share, and it appears that I'm the only person that uses Hub Studio under Linux that doesn't use a network share for things, so it's a pain in the butt to get to. Apparently, they've resolved all of that, except that if I run this version, the OBS browser doesn't actually display anything, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's getting closer. Let's probably do something like this. Ooh, look how many there are now. Now is not the time for that, but mostly documentation updates. This is one of those situations where I'm afeared that the fact that I use Slackware and not Ubuntu or something is going to see me in bad stead for this. Hopefully someday I can justify a merge license so I can get dark mode. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Like I say, the fact that text and merge or merge will use information from text is nice because I actually have, although, is it just me or are these two slightly different colors? That's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's theme related and not color scheme related. But this is actually Mariana, but with the color darkened by like 3% and nicely merge picks that up. So everything looks copacetic between the two of them. Um, Personally, I recommend Merge as I recommend Sublime Text. All products Sublime for your needs, if you will. Definitely, I used to, and I think I've mentioned this before, I used to use SmartGit to be able to do stuff. Its interface left a little bit to be desired, not terrible. Mostly what I like a graphical Git tool for, or what I mostly, pardon me, liked was the idea of being able to see the commit graph um, in a nicer format, if you will, rather than just seeing it in the console. And then, being able to have this sort of action definitely is cool. But I was using SmartGit for a while. I transitioned briefly into Git Kraken, but it caused more problems than it solved. And then luckily, Merge came along. And at this point, I kind of forget some of the more obscure Git related things that I used to do in the command line because I'm so used to using Merge to do it. Um, Merge and fork equally. Both have strong points. I'll fill in where the other might not be as strong. Indeed, yeah. Is fork one of the ones that's Mac OS only, or am I thinking of Tower? There've been a couple of Git clients that I've heard good things about in the past, and then when I went to look into them, they were like Mac only, or in one case, I want to say Windows only, although I can't remember what that one would have been. And what I need is something that's going to work across all operating systems, or at least Windows and Linux, because I do have a Mac over here. And the weird line of pixels on the screen has decided that it's going to be red today instead of green like it was before, which is fun as all get out. But so in many ways, that sort of thing is uh, that's actually something I haven't played with yet. It was Mac OS only. They just released a Windows one. Ah, neat. At this point, I'm sort of, I'm locked in. So that's going to go there, right? This is actually something that was in that last thing that like I said, I haven't actually played with yet. So control and click this. Nice. We don't need that one. What does this thing do? Is this just, that just does the same thing without having to do stuff? Ah, that's cool. Another small shop dev team. A guy write the Mac version and his wife writes the Windows one. Ah, neat. That is a cool way to go. Man, if I could get my wife to develop code, fortunately, I don't have to look beyond Merge because that's the only Git client I tried. In a pinch, I have been known to, whoops, do a little bit of this. And I can't even remember if I've done it on this machine. Um, First of all, ow my eyes. And technically, I mean, if you need to see the commits in a graphical form, it'll do. On the whole, not a super fan, but nice to have in your back pocket if you're on someone else's computer and they're not allowed to install software. I think I may have mentioned the project that we're working on right now, which is a big migration thing from VMS. All the developers are being forced to uh, write stuff in Node and TypeScript, which is new to a lot of them. And as a result of that and sharing with other parts of the company, they needed to bring themselves up to speed with using Git as their version control system. And they're getting better at it, and a few have already switched from using whatever it was they were using, which I guess is something that's built into Visual Studio Code, to having a copy of Merge. Because whenever they see me in a meeting, screen sharing and going over code, they see me using it and they want to use the same tool that I'm using so that things look the same. Yeah, I try not to I try not to do that if I can possibly help it. I felt bad about that in the meet the video from Monday. But I needed to show how the auto color scheme would switch between light and dark based on the system setting. And I really wanted to throw some sort of virtual welding goggles thing overlay on top of that panel when everything was bright, but you really need to see it, actually happening. Not getting a lot of stuff done here. Not that I really had a plan anyhow. Um, this is getting the list of things from here. So I think in the world of the purely theoretical, that would probably do something, but I don't know. Hmm. Maybe I shouldn't do it that way. Maybe the smart way is to not make it so incredibly hidden, huh? Hmm. Kind of expected that command to still exist. A Git client that doesn't support Linux is just the weirdest thing, given Git was literally written for Linux. Same problem with Git clients failing to open the Linux repo. Yeah, I would tend to agree. That's why I want to say that I'm pretty sure that I've seen such a thing, but I can't remember what it is now. So I may have been hallucinating that one. Wish I could remember what it was. I went through a fair few. I can't even remember now what the impetus was because I sort of fell into using Smart Git because we were using Smart SVN, and I can't even remember why we were doing that, to be perfectly honest. Because we've been using Subversion for, in fact, the main projects that we're working on are still using Subversion. It's only the newer stuff that's transitioned to Git. So I'm the only one of the two of us that actually is comfortable with using Git. But I sort of fell into it, and there's probably didn't quite like the interface to it, and went looking for something else. Git Kraken looks fairly nice, but you need the tool to actually do stuff for you, other than just sort of display stuff nicely. If I had to guess, I would say if anything would kill my desire to use anything as a Git client, it would be the inability of said client to do a side by side diff instead of the inline style. Because when you have a lot of changes, you really need to be able to, or I anyway, need to be able to see both of the things to be able to see this is what it used to look like, this is what it looks like now. I find it easier to visualize more complex changes if I can see both versions as opposed to the inline style. I want to say that back when I was playing with it, um, Gitkraken definitely did that, and it was stopping me from wanting to use it. Git, yeah, I'm not surprised that it's hard limited to 10,000 commits or so because it's an Electron app, right? So it probably blows stuff up. Yeah, and Yotku. Yotku, that's pretty wild though. I imagine Linux users are a bit more inclined to be content with the Git CLI, so I can imagine not focusing there first with a GUI client. Indeed, yeah, for a long time I just did everything from the command line, and the only reason I wanted something GUI related was to be able to visualize commits, particularly as regards to um, watching where the merges were happening in some of the code that I was working on at the time. I find I find that easier to understand and move around in than doing the, get one line graph all thing to be able to do the same thing in the terminal. It doesn't quite have the same granularity, and git k, will burn your retinas out of your head. Although at the time I was younger and could handle that more. Now I'm an old man with old man eyes. And I'm kind of confused at how, as a result of something that happened there, uh, no, that's the settings. Remember when this plugin worked and then I changed a line of code and then the command didn't appear anymore? Is that supposed to happen? Or is it not doing anything because there's no selection? That makes more sense. Okay. Um, Clearly I changed the structure of what this looks like. Oh, because the thing that's actually doing it is looking it up a different way. Right. Um, Intriguing. Huh. Oh. I think the list of Git clients that I played with was pretty much constrained to those. And then I got selected to play around with merge and help testing. And I have not looked back from that particular situation. It's really come quite a ways too. And however, it's been like a couple of years now since those very first builds. There are some things I sort of miss a little bit. Kind of wish that when you have multiple things up here and then you stage them, that tabs would go away. I think that's how it like used to work, so that it would be easier to see what still hasn't been staged, for example. But I endeavor to not have so many files that it's hard to track that sort of thing, where possible, anyway. Um, let's verify what this is actually doing. Oh, it's just blowing up right away. Huh. Oh, it's not right, right. This should be style. I can't remember how that part's supposed to work right now, so we're gonna slide on that one until we see what happens. Oh, that's no good. Okay, let's comment this part out for now and make a selection. Okay, and okay, so that resolves the issue with that, and it will totally work. The problem we're gonna have now is uh, this part doesn't quite do what we want, but we could do all marks, and it would probably get angry about stuff. Oh, did I pick yellowish there? I didn't mean to. Hmm. In any case, I kind of wish that we had resolved that part too, because now this is going to stay this way for the foreseeable future. Um, Mark's use needs to be changed as well. So we'll leave that as is. Um, and it was doing the actual color of the thing. So if that's probably closer to what we were expecting to see here, right? So we could mark the selection. Oh, now it's broken again. Shoot. Still, oh, is Mark's use not the thing that I think it is? Probably, huh? probably a dictionary or something. A list. That doesn't seem like it would cause a problem. Um, hmm. Oh, string required for. It's actually making an add regions call. Right. Maybe if I was looking in the right place, the style itself would be what? None. Okay, so that would explain some stuff then. Let's clear this console. And now we can't clear anymore because there isn't any, so that part is all okay. But doing that, oh, because the other code's still using the, right. Yeah, it's still using style list to get the thing. Right. I don't think we want to return this that way, do we? And this should be used if we want that to actually display some stuff. We actually don't need to do this anymore because the style that we're getting is actually the color that we want, right? So that's no longer even needed in here. So that's a nice easy change, like so. So according to me, we haven't used any of the magic buttons here yet. It's a good thing, I guess. Why is it still doing that? Oh. Why is it, I can't remember why it would even be doing that in the first place, to be perfectly honest. It's not marks used. Oh, because it's, okay. Yeah, right. The idea is you have to give it the list of things that it's interested in seeing. Whoops. Well, that doesn't look like something that existed there before I did something silly. There we go. This should be yeah. Mark some text. Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's grab one of these, I guess. I see what we have to do here. Probably would behoove us to do uh, a smarter data structure there. But That is cyan. And then if we clear mark selections, we can, oh, actually let's do this. Test it more ways down. Mark selections, let's mark this one as purple. And then we can clear mark selections, clear just the cyan, clear the mark selections, just the purple, and everything is cool. So, or what other places is this thing actually used? I mean, are we surprised that this worked at all? Because it doesn't seem like it should have, all things being equal. How are we doing over here? Everything's still kosher? I'm still a little weirded out by how the preview is only the top corner of the screen, you know? That really seems like not how that should be working. But by the same token, this also used to tell me how long I had been online, I've been alive, and it doesn't tell me that anymore either. So let's go out on a limb and say that YouTube has made some cool new updates to how things work. Hmm. The only other place where this is used is here. So that part's going to be cool. Style of styles, not all else. Bloop. So it's broken for the all case is what we're learning there. So if this was marked as blue, then if we clear the marked selections for all marks, that's when it blows up, or at least does nothing. Um, that would be the same thing as this other one, wouldn't it? So that's probably enough right there. And then this is no longer used, which is nice. Cool. Now, what was the original purpose of playing with this again? Because I've already forgotten in the grand scheme of things. Um, on the whole, works good. Let's fold that way. We hit the thing. This looks like a similar plugin I wrote for that guy on the forum who was asking for a code block colorer. Indeed, yeah. This is one that we worked on in the stream way back because somebody was asking about it on Stack Overflow. Um, and then whoever it was that asked for it wasn't interested in the actual solution by the time that I was done with it, or conceivably he was unhappy that it didn't work the way that the one that you helped that guy with. I remember he asked, he wanted it to be able to display a color chooser and then you choose a particular color and it would go. Um, and I was actually gonna unmothball this and share it, but you wrote the other one instead, so I did not. But yeah, very similar idea. I think he was doing it with a menu instead of an input handler. The thing that we can do now, though, um, is the thing that we were. I think this was the. Whoops. Oh crap. The thing that we were thinking of previously, which is no, you. Uh, we could return instances of. We could create rather instances of this instead of the array of things here. And then we would gain the ability to include some kind information. Um, So if we copy, that's this one. This would be Sublime dot list input item. I am 100% sure this is better. I might have taken a few hours to garble something up, but wasn't interested afterwards. I don't know. I seem to. I seem to recall looking over what you provided to the guy, and it seemed like it was going to do exactly what he wanted it to do. So, in that regard, automatic success, right? That perfection is the enemy of getting anything done. I can never remember how that setting goes, uh, but it's the basis for. If you look at the YouTube channel, the difference in times between the very first common questions video on scopes and April 1st of 2019, which is the start of me putting out one video a week. Since then, I've managed to do it without missing a video. The time divide in there is how long I spent trying to work on stuff locally because I had a vision in my head for exactly how I wanted videos to look on the channel, and I was unable to get there. And I spent a bunch of time, practicing recording stuff, working on graphics and throwing them away and everything. And eventually, the lesson there is you can spend forever trying to get something looking the way you want and then share it with someone, or you can get on with actually doing something and learn by doing along the way, because the first effort is never going to be great, and you'll never be done if you're waiting for it to exactly match your expectations. Which is why you may have noticed, that every video is always slightly different, which is kind of tweaks my OCD a little bit, but I'm always trying, different things. Like, should I have a lot of pop-up panels down at the bottom, or should I not? Which way do people like that better? Which way do I like that better? Or thumbnails, or uh, even, when going over code in a plugin, is it handy to have the arrow pointing at each line as you're talking about it? Is it cooler to have a box around it? Do we want nothing? Do we want to use that effect where it focuses in on the one lines and everything else is sort of blurred and dimmed out? Try to decide, what works the best. So in that regard, everything is just constantly changing, and I find code very much in the exact same state of affairs. You just gotta do a thing and get her done, if you will. Mm, Whoops. Come on, man. The very first item in here is the name. The next one's the value, like so. Uh, Details. We'll just put the string details in here. And annotation. And the last thing is going to be the kind. Mm-mm-mm. Kind ID, color reddish, just for the time being. For V in, whoops, well actually let's do this. So in theory, and I really wish, nope, okay. Hmm? What did I do now? Oh, oh, that's a kind ID. Right. Sorry. uh, Interesting. Okay. You have to use those with these. Right. Okay. I'm with it. And That part is less cool. Because it's actually an object and not that thing. That dude was asking for it over and over, so I thought to finally oblige in the hopes he might tweak it on his own. Did he offer to pay you at all for doing that? Because I think that's the guy whose original thing was, who? How do I, hire somebody to create a plugin for me or something? Unless I'm thinking of somebody else, because there's somebody out that did the same thing. Um, Okay, cool. Now, what do we want to put in these things, if anything? Uh, Clearly, the kinds would actually follow the colors of the ish colors instead. Um, Probably don't need an annotation. Probably don't need a details. Can't imagine that there's a lot to be said about those things, right? Um, did Sublime Text 4 add in the text highlight options to the editor API? Text highlight options? You mean like what we're playing with here? That's something that has existed for a long time. Mm, let's clear that. What we what we need to do is tweak this. So in that regard, the ability to do that and just provide it an arbitrary color is still not a thing that works. No, you need to do extra stuff in that regard in order to get that to work. Let's do this. No, does this actually help? Probably not, huh? Because that's a list of things. No, we're iterating over them, so this will totally work. Yes. Also, welcome to the stream, Platinum. Sorry, I'm so used to answering questions. It just occurred to me, I have not said hi to you yet. Uh, Keep in mind that it is possible to do that, but it requires magic in your color scheme. For example, that's how Terminus manages to display arbitrary colors. Although I'm not sure how you go about doing that because I've spent a lot of time making sure that it doesn't. But yeah, it is technically possible to do. We'll do that and a little bit of that. Yeah, I don't think that part doesn't care. That part doesn't matter, right? Oops. Uh, you need a comma on the end of those lines too. I wrote it out of interest. I don't expect payment out of any help I've given for anything Sublime related. I'm more interested in how that question helps me understand. Yeah, that's Ashwin's sentiment in the chat there mirrors my own. I I just do stuff because it's fun to hack plugins like this. It helps you learn more about the API in general, and that's really what you need, right? It's a friend that does art streams that talks about how he is an artist, a really good artist, and people always say, "Oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't draw." And his position on that is actually, yes, you can draw. Anybody can draw. The problem is that you want to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil and make an artwork that looks like this, but you don't realize that I've been doing this since I was 7. Just all my spare time just spent drawing and refining and deciding what to shade and what looks good and what doesn't look good until eventually you get to the point where you can draw something that you'll see in one of my videos sometime soon because it's now in the mail, an artist's conception of my dog Walter as a super spy saving an orphanage of bunnies and rabbits from a horde of ninja cats. uh, That's not something I can do. That's something he can do because he spent a lot of time doing that, and I've spent an ungodly amount of time just coding in general. So this comes easy to me in the same way that art comes easy to him. But if you want to get to this level, you do need to have the experience and the experience to do it, which requires you to have the practice to do it. So there's really no um, short circuit there, if you will. Now let's do this. And so for the same reason, Ashwin, I wouldn't ask anybody to pay for anything either. There's been a couple of people that have offered to, um, probably could have done that smarter, huh? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I got too many. Right, right, right. My bad. That have offered to provide tips, and I'm like, don't feel obligated to do that because that's not why I'm doing this. But if you want to, yes, because I know you want to show support, right? And I get that. I do that by, say, my artist friend. I have a subscription to him on Twitch because that helps him out and helps support his art and what he wants to do. So I totally understand that, but it's not something that I would ask for, which is self promotion is not one of my strong suits, I guess we could say. Um, I broke it, did I? Ah, shoot, shoot, shoot. Actually, maybe I could have done this in a smarter way. I forgot. And one more. That's probably going to work better, right? Okay, except for the part where we're not using it. That's cool. All right. So now we just, in this part, say be kind. But maybe we spell kind that way. Actually, going back to that in an ironic turn of phrase, at one point, somebody from school in Chicago, a STEM school, sent me a message to my Gmail account because they were doing for the STEM kids in their classes a digital scavenger hunt kind of thing, and they wanted to have something code related in it, and the school used Sublime Text, so they thought, why not have something Sublime Text related, sort of on the order of the kids come in and there's some stuff that they need to type into a buffer, and then they press a key, and if they typed in the right thing and they followed the instructions, something programming related, then a clue would pop up, and that would take them to the next part of their scavenger hunt. And they tapped me for that because I am so active on the forum and asked for help doing that. And I spent a good 40 minutes talking to them on a cell phone call that I initiated. So I'm actually out of pocket on the whole expense because cell phone calls at the time, they were in Chicago. That's the States. I didn't have that on my plan. Talking with them about what we could do. They had a very tight time frame. I stayed up until like 2 o'clock in the morning, coming up with basically a command that opened. It basically scripted Sublime, that it would open up a plugin, like I think the exec plugin, and maneuver around in it like the computer was programming itself, and then eventually it popped out into another tab and they had to do something and then execute a command, and they I sent it off to them and they said thanks, we'll let you know how it goes, and that's the last I heard of them. And not like I was expecting like money out of that or anything, because in no way, but it is nice when you help somebody to at least be acknowledged with a thank you at the end. So That seemed kind of harsh. Now, if we've done this correctly, purple and pink look awful similar, but uh, that's not too shabby. I mean, also yellow. Eh. Whoops. You can only do so much, right? We need to change the text of those as well. Looks more yellow now. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, pink. If we added ish to the end of all of those things, beauty. Also, faster when you can type. That one's going to be blue. That one's going to be orange. This one's going to be yellow. It's nice that these are persistent too. Shouldn't have messed with how that was doing anything. I'm going to guess that purple and pink end up being the same. In some ways, yeah, the one that you created, Ash one, and the way that we had this originally, sort of, um, better in that you can sort of control the colors a little bit more by providing an explicit scope instead of just using the ish colors, which is sort of how this was originally intended to be. You could set these to whatever you like, and then you'd have to add rules to your color scheme to be able to do it. But I kind of like the idea of just using built-in colors, and then this file actually doesn't have to exist at all, which is nice. And we can clear specific ones. So let's say we wanted to clear the yellow. Only that one should go away, and it does. So that's nice. And these are persistent, which means if we quit and restart, they are still there, which is also kind of cool. They wouldn't persist across a file. Close and load, though. Did you create something that does that for yours, Ashwin? I can't remember if that was something that he wanted or not. I may be conflating that with the guy on the forum, I want to say nickname Dutch, who's using Sublime to write prose and had a lot of questions about how to create his own syntax, how to create his own color scheme for use in the syntax with keys to be able to do something similar to this. To well, not similar to this, to be able to insert a key, a comment, and have it be a particular color. And it started off being a syntax thing, and then we moved to regions because the region doesn't go to the end of the line, but the syntax does, and he didn't like that for multi-line things. Um, that guy, very very nice individual that did say thank you quite a bit for all of the work that was put into that. I may be conflating those two things in my head. I'm not entirely sure. Um, let's go ahead and, whoops, let's go ahead and give the focus to the correct thing. Clear marked selections all. All right, so I guess what we really need is, it's all of them, right? A little bit of that. Oh, I guess we need to fix those. There's none of these. Or I could have put little dashes in there. Does it look better this way? I don't think so. Whether or not these are actually useful colors or not is totally up to the color scheme. And then the thought occurs that we could actually, or could we, synthesize this list of items based on knowing the ish colors. You could definitely split the string on periods and title case, the second part, to get the name of the style. if it was one of these. Um, More tricky to, or not. Actually, we could do this, couldn't we? Is it worth doing that just to make this smaller and tighter? That is the question of the ages. And also, am I going to go mildly blind from this monitor at some point? Just dismiss that. Uh, let's see. I was kind of amused by the question on the forum about the idea of having Sublime in one of the marketplaces. I'm not entirely sure what that buys, pun not intended, having it in more places than just you give us, you know, pay here and then you can download. I guess if you were in the Windows Store or the Mac App Store, the operating system would be in charge of doing the update for you, but Sublime can already automatically update itself, so I'm not sure that that helps. It's an interesting thing. Funnily enough, related to something that Ben mentioned in that forum thread about, you know, pricing between multiple things, there is a game that I've been playing a fair amount of called Ruinark, which is basically RimWorld, but you're trying to destroy the colony instead of help it. You can buy it on Steam and you can buy it on the Humble Store. And weirdly, on the Humble Store, it was like $4 or $5 cheap. Well, maybe three or $4 cheaper if you bought it on the Humble Store versus if you bought it on the Steam Store, which is sort of a weird thing. You'd expect it to be the same price everywhere. And I think that has something to do with how uh, Steam has regional pricing for things. Um, so that things more or less cost the same amount for people in different regions based on their own currency. So they very strictly monitor. For example, I can't gift a game to anybody outside of North America because the maybe not even in the US, but I've never tried. But definitely outside of like Canada is somewhere in Europe because games in on Steam are priced in euros instead, or maybe in pounds in directly in, well, maybe not yet. Well, maybe now, but not at the time that this happened. And because of that, I'm not allowed to gift them the game because I might be paying more or less than what he would the recipient of the gift would pay in their particular area, which was a giant pain. I mean, I think actually it ended up that it would be more expensive for me to do it. I asked Steam support, is there a way that I can just pay the difference to be able to gift my friend in another country this game? And the answer was no. When I tried to buy it, I had quite some bank troubles because the money goes to Australia, and it seems this is out of the default service region. Oh, yeah, that would be. Was that before PayPal was an option? Is PayPal an option now? I seem to recall somebody asking about that. But yeah, um, that would be a reason to do something like that. Yeah. Um, res- Respective of the App Store thing, the graphic software that I tend to use are from Serif, the Affinity series of things, which incidentally I think are currently free for 90 days, and they have a 50% off deal if you actually want to buy a license. They have Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and Affinity Publisher. Desktop publishing, Affinity Photo is basically Photoshop, Affinity Designer is basically Illustrator, and Publisher is whatever the Adobe equivalent of that is. But they're a lot cheaper and such. And you can buy those directly from Affinity, or you can buy them on, I think, the Mac App Store and on the Windows App Store. Then, of course, the issue with that is when they come up with an update, the people that bought it from them directly get the update right away, and it can take, from like 24 to 48 hours before other people get the update, because it has to be submitted to the App Store and it has to be vetted and it has to go through channels and such. But at the same token, I think if you bought it on, say, Mac OS, and you bought it from the Mac Store instead of from them, then if you had like money in your Apple account, you could use that as opposed to having to use a credit card. So I can definitely see that as a thing. Many a time I've wished I could use my Google Play balance to buy something with Google Play, because I have a ridiculous balance. And then, you could sneakily purchase things without a credit card statement. If you were purchasing, a gift for someone that spends a lot of time monitoring bank statements, for example. Um, for Sublime, I'm not sure that that makes a lot of sense, but yeah, as you're saying, if because the money goes to Australia, and I think there's been one or two people in the stream that were interested in providing me a tip, but the only tipping thing I have available is something via PayPal, and they live in a part of the world where PayPal is not allowed. And I'm not sure if the country doesn't allow it or PayPal doesn't work in that country, which threw me for a loop, because that really cuts a lot of uh, payment options for people, because it seems like using Amazon or using PayPal for stuff is becoming more and more prevalent as time goes on. I guess because, you can keep your credit card information safe or something. I'm not quite sure how that works. Definitely seeing it a ton in 2020, because we know a lot of people in the arts who their main income is actually traveling from trade show to trade show, like, say, San Francisco Comic Con and Emerald City Comic Con and South by Southwest and all that stuff, where there's booths set up and they would take their glass sculptures or their painted art or their drawn art and sit there in a booth and sell it, and that's where the bulk of their money comes from. And because of COVID, all cons were shut down and they're really scrabbling to find a way to sell stuff. So a lot of people have been taking to Twitch to show people what they're doing and gain a following there. And then you end up spending a lot of time working with PayPal as the easiest way for someone that doesn't normally do that sort of thing to be able to create an invoice to pay for something. Oh yeah, and uh, plat platin. Sorry, I might have said platinum previously. Platin. Uh, my wife uses software called Platinum Studio 21, so I'm having flashbacks here. Uh, would make it more expensive though, because Apple takes quite a chunk of money from people. Yeah, that is also an issue, and that's something that just earlier today, as a matter of fact, I was watching a YouTube video where somebody was saying, "Do you want to get into streaming in 2021? Uh, Under no account should you do it on Twitch," which surprised me because it seems very popular. Uh, but Twitch takes 50% of all subscription fees from when you like subscribe for to someone and give them like uh, $5, say, or $6, whatever it works out to. They only get $2.50 out of that, and Twitch doesn't pay you out until you get $100 accrued. So, by his estimation, a lot of people give up on streaming before they even accrue $100, because it takes so long to get to a level where that can happen. So that's just like free money for Amazon, apparently, from what this guy was saying. Anyway, he seemed to be a big streamer all over everywhere. Whereas Google takes 30%, which I would have thought was high, but better than 50. Marketplaces force you to not sell at lower prices anywhere else. Yeah. So the 30% cut they take would add to the price everywhere. Yeah, exactly. I guess there's, definite the whole payment method thing seems like maybe the only gain there. Does Apple restrict you to only distributing on their platform? No, they can't, because the Serif people don't do that. But I think the price is indeed the same for everything. If I had to, I think so. You know, which is definitely not cool. Although they are allowed to put it on sale, but that the sale might also work on the app store for Mac OS as well. I'm not sure. As I say, I like the Mac well enough, but the Macs are too pricey for me for the level that which and frequency with which I use them that I can't justify spending the money to actually get one if this one should ever go down. Perfection is the enemy of progress. There you go. That's the thing from earlier. Now you have to use the hardened runtime thing. Oh, is that the thing where yeah, it sandboxes you in a little bit? My thing for not buying Mac software is just that if this Mac ever craps out, and like I may have mentioned, roughly 3 inches from the right hand side of the screen, it's just decided that there's one line of pixels that needs to be read. They're clearly not dead, they're very visible and they change color. Sometimes they're green and sometimes they're purple. So there's something wrong with the display, something or other. Uh, but I can't justify the expense of buying another one, so I kind of don't want to buy Mac software that's only Mac because it kind of seems like I'm feeding into some sort of obsolescence. I mean, Sublime is great for this because one license runs everywhere, but Affinity doesn't work that way, and I don't blame them because I think there's a lot of behind the scenes action that was required to get things working for all of the different things. But yeah, Ben said perfection is the enemy of progress. That's the thing I was trying to, I was struggling to remember earlier in the stream regarding my video making process and how it's just slowly getting better. For example, we got some stuff in the mail today, and more stuff went out from things that we've purchased over the last couple of months, art related from various people that we're supporting, and they just do good work, so it's nice to have things. So the area behind me and to the right of me and to the left of me in my main videos, which I record back there, which is just bare walls right now, is going to have some art on it, which makes for better set dressing. But I don't have it yet, and I didn't want to hold off on getting the hang of creating videos in the new style with a new camera setup and tweaking the lighting until that happened, because that's just that's time I could be spending perfecting things. If you buy it from them and you have a key, it works on every platform too. Yes, what, Jen? What did you mean by that exactly? I'm not sure, but I think if you purchase Affinity from the Affinity store, you get a license key. But if you purchase it from, oh, and that's sort of the other thing that I have sort of discovered just from hanging around in their forums for a little bit. Um, if you purchase from Affinity directly in their store, then you purchase either the Windows version or the Mac version. Sadly, no Linux version. I would be over that, all over that in a heartbeat. And I think Ben has mentioned as well. He's sort of on. He might be maybe one of those people that's on the edge of Affinity, but there's not a Linux version, so that's kind of a no-go. You get like a license key and then you can install and you're good to go. If you buy it on the App Store, then you don't get a license key because now the App Store is associating the purchase with your account. But that also means that if you have any problem and you want a refund, they can't help you because they're not the ones who took your money. Or people often say, "Can I have the Mac OS version that I bought myself, but I'd like to move it to the Mac Store, or I bought it on the Mac Store and I'd like to move it to a license key so I can just install it myself so I can get updates faster. Can you help me with that?" And the answer is no, because the App Store is the one that has your information. Apple doesn't tell a vendor the nitty gritty details of people who bought software on their platform. Presumably, you just get a check, right? So there's that to deal with too, which, depending on the size of your company, it's probably a make or break kind of operation, I would think. Um, Oh my, look at the time. Mm, that still seems to think things are cool. The Mac really, really, really wants to install some kind of update. Um, it's all it ever does is want to install updates. It's kind of funky. I think we should probably call it. I mean, we didn't get a lot done, but we did hang out, and I didn't want this to be sort of a chill stream because apparently, hopefully, based on the reports I'm getting over here, that the stream health is entirely healthy. Whatever weird problem was plaguing my router with its routing issues seems to have gone away, or maybe it only affected certain things and it wouldn't have affected the live stream. I'm not sure. But I wanted to sort of keep it a little bit low key because I wasn't sure if somewhere in the middle of the stream the whole network might just drop away because I have a feeling YouTube's streaming doesn't quite uh, handle that as robustly as it could, if you will. Um, Yay, no issue with dropped frames. That's cool. Um, I totally did discover when I move a window, which may not work with this window because of it has a custom caption. But when I click on this, the window it becomes translucent, so I can see. If I do that too much, OBS has a hard time keeping up with that. So I try not to do that. Hopefully that didn't just cost a dip right there. But the CPU graph on the whole seems to be hovering around 3%. So beauty on that regard. But I was mostly worried about the network, which it seems is good. But there was the issue actually started with something that my wife noticed that a site that she's been going to for months just would not load. And we discovered it wouldn't load on her laptop. It wouldn't load on my laptop. It wouldn't load on our phones, but it would load on this computer. But that's it. And then I thought, maybe there's something wrong with MTU sizes on the Windows laptops. And then I thought, what if there's a firewall thing? And then I realized, hey, no, because it works under Linux. They have the same MTU. The thing that's different is this machine is hardwired. And we, in fact, discovered that if we connect it to a different I have multiple routers here. If we connect it to a different one, the work one, that site worked just fine. It was very weird. I am using hardware encoding for this on the, I think this is a Quattro, NVIDIA Quattro card. So hopefully that, as far as I could see, the quality is about what I would expect for the bit rate that I'm using as the CPU encoding was, the software encoding, but it uses far less CPU than it did before. Although this computer is a lot beefier than the other machine when I started doing streams before I upgraded to this one. I had to use software encoding, and it was basically using like 10 or 15% of one core at all times, just working on encoding stuff. But I think the way that it's doing that is I have window compositing turned on because I figured, hey, what the hell? I have a faster video card now. So I think something about having the window translucent, needing to see underneath itself to be able to know how to render that interacting with I think OBS uses X shared memory. Um, it's probably using some sort of, uh, I forgot what I'm saying. I'm assuming some sort of hardware acceleration, so there might be something there. Uh, I'm not sure how new it is. Oh, let's see. Ba, ba, ba. Did I go too far? It's in here. It's a P400. I was led to believe that this card was obsolete out of the factory, but I never really looked into it much myself. This is indeed a proprietary driver, yes. Um, but by the same token, yes, NVEnc is the thing that it's actually using. If that's not what I said, that's what I meant. Uh, I would go into the settings in OBS to check, but there's a potential that it will segfault if I open a dialog, so I don't want to do that until the stream is over. I'm hoping that those new commits will fix some of the stability issues that I have been seeing, though. But yeah, I've heard reports that it's perhaps not the best quality, but that all seems to be related to gamers that are playing high resolution games at high frame rates, which maybe is causing it to not do as good a job. And I think for mostly static screens that we're seeing here, I don't think that that plays too much into that. But the the card that I had previously was also in NVIDIA, but it was definitely an old card. In fact, mm, that computer is turned off right now, or I could do the same thing. It's still sitting under the desk because, hey, you never know. So I think it's time to press this button. Oh, you know what? We never got a chance to do this, but we totally made this thing do something that we'd like it to do. Just to verify, that one's red. Whoops. This one's orange. This one's yellow. This one's green. This one's blue, purple, and whoops, pink. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's pink per se. I don't know how it comes across in the operation there, but the closest color that Mariana has to pink. Nevertheless, that totally works. So with only 2.5 hours of idly coding and hanging out and chatting, modicum of success, which is really what you want out of your stream, right? Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I think we're going to call the stream there. I'm still pondering the notion of potentially moving streams to the main channel. Basically, what's sort of the holdup at this point is the YouTube algorithm, because I'm getting conflicting reports that if I was to live stream and 90 people didn't show up, that perhaps YouTube would stop showing regular channel videos to people. Some people say yes, some people say no. Waiting to hear back. And then that whole, what do we do with replays? Because if they stayed on the main channel, then they wouldn't all be in the same place. But if I moved them to this channel, they wouldn't have a chat replay. The problems we have with this sort of thing. But in any case, thanks so much for watching. Remember, I do stream weekly on one channel or the other. If you follow me on Twitter, you will see a notification. If you've subscribed to either one of my channels, particularly this one for the time being, and use the bell notification icon, YouTube will also tell you when I'm scheduled to go live, which always happens a few hours before. But indeed, so that is definitely some stuff that is being planned. I welcome everybody to join in on live stream. As you can see, we have a lot of fun just sort of chatting about random stuff. Sometimes we actually work on plugin code as well. uh, could definitely advertise the live stream at the end of the videos if you hold a normal schedule. I do indeed, and this is one of the things I'm terrible at self promotion, which, is one of the things I'm slowly getting better at. But seems weird to toot my own horn. I don't think I'm that great, even though apparently I'm iconic. Hey, hey, in the good way. Thanks so much for watching. If you're in the Discord, you probably notice when I go live because my status changes. And you follow me on Twitter and YouTube, you can find out the same thing. If you ever have an idea for something we should work on in a live stream, do let me know because I'm always looking for fun stuff to play with. You can ask questions about Sublime, about plugin development, or about the varied past of Objective C code and the many variations of Next Step, Open Step, Rhapsody, and macOS we've spent our lives writing Objective C code for. Until next week's live stream, which should be on a Tuesday. It was only Wednesday this week because of the network problems I mentioned earlier, and I was fiddling with my router into the wee hours of the evening yesterday. This is Oda Nerd. Thanks so much, everybody, for showing up. Hope to see you in the next stream, and have a sublime day. And now this is the part where I awkwardly smile and make eye contact while I reach down to position my thumb over the appropriate part of the iPad so I can end the stream.